the thing is, everybody hears the same lies. I have the same lies in my head. You don't have enough money. You're not good enough. You don't have the connections. All those lies were the same, and everybody hears them. And one thing I learned is you renew your thoughts, right?
Yep.
When you have that negative thought, you speak the opposite.
There you go.
So when you're a loser, that's what your mind says. Oh, I'm a winner, and I'm going to win. I'm going to succeed. You don't have enough money. I have all things at the hands. I can afford and do anything. I'm going to go after it. So don't let any of those things limit you.
Fellow wealth warriors, I have a special treat today. I have Kevin McDugle in-house, former Marine, author, House of Representatives, sits on the board for businesses for the state of Oklahoma. Former business owner, he's owned multiple businesses. He understands how to run a business, and all the things that he's about to drop on the wisdom on us is just amazing. I look forward to letting you guys in on some secrets that he has to growing a business, and it's definitely worth paying attention to. Watch to the end. Kevin, man, thank you so much. You are one busy guy, and I know you are everywhere all at once, and I really appreciate your time to take the time to talk to our audience, the guys that are out here, girls that are out here, they're building businesses. What better person than to talk to somebody who's built businesses, sold businesses, built them again, and now you're in office. I want to go back in time.
Sure.
Okay, I want to go back in time. You got your MBA. You're in the workforce. You're killing it. What was, first of all, let's talk about your first business.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So I want you to kind of go in depth about what that was for you and what it was like. Number one, to enter into being an entrepreneur to begin with.
Sure. Yeah. I'd just come out of the Marine Corps. I'd been out about 6 months, and I needed some money to close on a house. I didn't have enough. And the job I was working paid me $8.50 an hour, and I knew I needed to create some cash. And so I thought, what did the Marine Corps teach me that I can do or now that people might take advantage of? So as a drill instructor in the Marine Corps, I thought, I can do a physical fitness class as a drill instructor because that was kind of hot at that time, And I thought, well, I can create that. So I took my drill instructor cover and my black T-shirt, and I went down to the local newspaper, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about starting this physical fitness boot camp, and would you guys mind doing a story on that? And they did a story for free, which was a God thing, 100%. And so once they did the story, I didn't know what to expect. And I honestly didn't know how I was going to treat this. It was just, I just had to do it, right? I just had to have some money.
Yeah.
And so the very first day of class, I had 75 people show up. And they were paying $75 a piece, which was more than what I was making at $8.50, $8.50 an hour. And so I come out, and there's all 75. I've got them sitting on a mat, and I put on the drill instructor cover, and I'm yelling at them. I'm doing the sit up straight, get your eyeballs on me. And I can tell by their reaction, they're not going to show up tomorrow. They're not coming back, right? So I literally took off my cover after I did the spiel, and I set it down, and I said, you just experienced the first 2 minutes of Marine Corps boot camp, and that's not what this is about. We're going to work together as a team the next 3 weeks, 1 hour a day, and I set some standards. I said, if I catch you in Eskimo Joe's eating cheeseburgers, you're going to be pushing the next day. So cut out the Cokes, cut out the cheeseburgers, cut out that kind of stuff. Just kind of watch what you're doing and exercise with me on a daily basis. And I had everyone lose from anywhere from 5 pounds to 50 pounds in 3 weeks, right? Just doing something right. So that was my first real experience. I didn't even register it as a business. I was just taking the money as it came in, you know. But I ended up doing that for 2 years, and that was my first business. I ended up stopping it because of a divorce I was getting ready to go through, and they were going to count it as income, and I didn't want them to count it as income. So I stopped that one. So that was my first experience in business.
So that launched you into what? What was your next step?
Yeah, I had worked for several companies as a director of sales, and so I was in the sales arena, and I could hardly sit still. I mean, I took a test when I came out of the Marine Corps, and I said, you need to be an entrepreneur, right? But I had always worked for somebody else. I didn't know what I would do as an entrepreneur. I didn't know what idea or what do you create, right? Had no clue. So I knew that I needed to stay in a workforce for a little while. The only reason I even got my degrees is because my dad was a smart man, and he wanted me to get degrees because he had missed opportunities because he didn't have any. So I got degrees. If I went back today, I tell young people, if you want to be an entrepreneur, don't worry about the degree. I learned so much more making mistakes than I did in class. And in my business classes, I'd ask the professor, what business did you start? What did you do? And the majority of them had never been in business.
Yeah,
you know, they're teaching me, but they'd never even started a business. They didn't know what risk was, you know. So anyway, I just encourage them to jump in and get after it, you know, make the mistakes, fall on your face, because that's where you learn. And so after that, my first business, I had come back from Kansas working for a company up there, and went to work for about a 90-day period as a consultant for a hearing aid company here in Tulsa. And learned enough about the hearing aid business, and I had a hearing loss, and so I thought, you know what, I could start a hearing aid company. And so I hired a lady that was an expert in hearing. She was a hearing instrument specialist, and I did all the marketing and sales side, and we opened a location. And it ended up costing me a lot of money on a monthly basis to drive people in. And I gave her 40% of the company, thinking that would motivate her, right? Which is a total fail on my part, because people don't get motivated when they get ownership. They only get motivated if they can earn ownership, right? But I'd given it to her. And so about, I don't know, a year into the business or so, she decided she didn't want to work, and I went down and my receptionist said she won't give me the checks for the day. I said, what do you mean she won't give you the checks? She wasn't on the bank account because I was financing the whole thing. And I told her, I said, when the debt's paid off, my debt, when it's paid off, I'll add you to the bank account. I don't have a problem with that, but not until that's paid off when we get it there. And so anyway, she wouldn't give those checks. And I said, well, if you'll give me those checks, I'll go deposit them. She said, oh, I'm going to deposit them. I said, really? Where are you going to deposit them? She said, I opened my own Tulsa hearing aid account. I said, really? She had taken my organizational papers and completely retyped them with her name in it, went to a bank, opened her own account, and tried to deposit those checks, about $18,000 in checks that one day, into that account. And so I didn't know what bank she was using, but I drove to every bank within a 1.5-mile radius and met with them, and every one of them said, we really can't tell you any information, but I can tell you she's not here, right? And I finally got to that one bank that said, we can't tell you any information. Gotcha. And I said, I want to see your CEO, right? And I told him, I said, if you cash one of those checks, I'm going to file every lawsuit I can. Well, then it hit me on the way home after that all I have to do is call the people that wrote the checks and get them to cancel and pay for it.
Right.
And so she didn't get a penny, but then she sued me for her 40% of the company after I fired her the next day, right? So I had that company for a couple of years, hated the business because I've got too kind of a heart to be in a business to charge old people for hearing aids. So I shut down the retail store, but I started selling hearing aids online. And I literally sold hearing aids from coast to coast. There was a workaround because you're not supposed to, legally, you weren't supposed to sell any unless you could give advice, right?
Yeah.
And so the way I got around that was I would make them sign a piece of paper and say, you will take these hearing aids and go to a hearing instrument special to get them fitted, because that was all they wanted to make sure. And it worked legally. That was a legal option. And I ended up selling 100 or so hearing aids a month there for a long time. And when she sued me, I wanted to make sure she didn't get a percentage of it at all. So I ended up filing bankruptcy on the company, which I'll tell you, don't ever do. It's bad advice. Yeah. Don't do it. She didn't get a penny, not a penny. That was the good thing.
Yeah.
But then I had to suffer for the next 10 years on credit,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so it was bad advice, but something that I'd learned. And when you go through something like that, you feel like, well, I failed.
Yep.
I can't do it again. But I had this nagging desire to start a new company the whole time, and went ahead and did my next company after that. And so yeah.
You know, as a victim of fraud myself, we've had two business partners that defrauded our companies, and that I've had in the past. And man, I'm telling you what, there's probably no greater negative feeling, than to know somebody stealing from you like that behind your back, or doing something behind your back.
That's right. And
finding out about it, catching them with a hand in the cookie jar.
Exactly.
And that's exactly what happened with us. And my gosh, it's a testimony to our listeners, because you got to be really careful who you get in business with.
Well, and one thing I learned that I didn't know, I figured, hey, I'm financing this thing, right?
Yeah.
She's only got 40% of the company. So if she's stealing money, that's embezzlement.
Sure.
It's not embezzlement.
Yeah, because it's almost like a marriage.
Yeah, if she owns 1% of the company, she can take whatever she wants and do whatever she wants. She can take the equipment. She can steal the bank account. I mean, she can do whatever. He, she, whoever. If they have a percentage of the company, they're an owner in the company. They can do what they want to do. And so it was a huge lesson for me. So I've got business partners now in my fourth business, and we're good friends. We all have it set up to where they have their business, I have my business. We have businesses that we share, but everyone's equal partners, and I trust the folks that are in there.
There you go.
And that's the biggest thing. And if you ever see that trust broken, boy, you got to follow that route all the way to the bottom.
That's true.
So.
That's very true. Yeah, I've kind of alluded to that myself. And you know what it does is it jades you against people.
Yeah.
And you got to guard your heart because, man, we've been. They say that you know, to be crass, and it's maybe the military coming out in me, but you know this as well as I do, that entrepreneurship's kind of like being pregnant.
Yeah.
And they never know how many times you got screwed.
That's right. I'll tell you what, though, I've got to tell you this, because when I was still working for other people, so my first experience was not really a real business. I didn't form a business. I just started something and it made me money, right? Yeah. So some could consider that business, but I didn't go through the formal process, right? And I did pay taxes on it, but it just wasn't formal. But when I went to Kansas, I can remember being there and not making a whole lot of money there. But every morning I'd go run 3 miles, and the first 10 minutes I'd spend just being thankful. And you can't be depressed. You can't be down in the dumps when you're thankful, right? And if you think about the things you're thankful for, you can be a bum on the streets and you can be thankful for the things that are around you, right? But I was thankful for my family. I was thankful for my church. I was thankful for what I did have. I was thankful for the bosses I had. I was thankful for, and I'd go through that Thanksgiving. But the next 10 minutes, and I don't know where I got this. I know biblically now where it came from. But I don't know what sparked me to do it at that time. But I can remember spending the next 10 minutes calling things out that didn't exist as if they did. And what I mean by that, I can remember saying, you're a business owner, you have multiple streams of revenue. You're an author, you have multiple books. You have political high influence in high places, none of which was true, right? Yeah. But it came true. You're a multimillionaire and you give away millions, right? All of that was what I was saying. And so when things started coming true, I asked myself, why did that work? What happened? Because this was something that I envisioned, something I spoke, and then it came true. And then I realized when I started getting into church that God said, let there be light. Well, he spoke it. Why did he have to say it? He could create anything he wanted to, but he was setting an example for us. And then they say faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word. Well, a lot of people by The Secret. You watch The Secret, right?
Yeah.
And they say, well, if you just speak it and you draw in whatever, bull, right?
Yeah, universal.
Universe pays you back, whatever. Here's what it does. When I spoke those words, I heard them, and they got buried into my heart. Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, you think, I don't have enough money. I'm not good enough. I don't have what it takes. I don't have the connections. I need a business partner, whatever that doubt is, right?
Yeah.
But when I started speaking it out loud, I started to actually hear it and believe it in my heart that I could do it.
Yeah.
And so now, I've had a couple of companies. I've got several now. I've got political influence. I've got my first book out. I'm writing my second. I mean, everything that I spoke is coming true.
Yeah.
Right? But it had to start with an idea, a vision, and then verbally is where things happen.
Confessing it to yourself.
That's it.
And everything. So
That's it.
So, all right, I'm going to go back a little further. Marine Corps.
Yes, sir.
Leadership in business versus leadership in the military.
Absolutely.
Man, I'm telling you, this was a hard one for me.
Yeah.
Because when you tell this guy do this and he does that, just biblically.
Yeah.
The generals, he'll go here. He does this because I tell him to.
Yeah.
The centurion knew when he was speaking to Jesus the authority.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So that authority in the military and that authority outside the civilian work doesn't always.
They don't work well together sometimes, do they?
Kind of like what you're talking about. You came out there as a drill instructor and you knew all those guys weren't going to show up the next day.
That's right. Exactly.
Well, if you're a drill instructor, they got to show up the next day.
That's right.
These guys don't.
Exactly.
So having that kind of An influence. What was that transition like for you?
Took me about 30 years.
Good.
Yeah.
There's hope for me yet.
I'm just telling you, because, in military structure is so purposeful, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like biblical structure. I mean, there's an authority above us. Mm-hmm. He gives his word. As long as you follow that word, you're blessed, right? Yeah. In life, it's a lot the same way. But what I had to realize, I was so used to being able to bark a command and somebody would follow. Mm-hmm. You do this, otherwise there's consequences. You do that, otherwise there's consequences. You get into business, you're dealing with such a variety of people. And that's one thing about the Marine Corps. They would take people from, I had people that came straight from being a mama's boy. I had people that came from being gang members and leaders in the gangs. It's everyone together. And what you do for that 90 days is you break everybody down to the same level, and then you build them back up. And you build them back up with the history that's behind the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. The history behind the Marine Corps is 300 Marines took on 10,000 and they won. One Marine took on 50 and they won. There's so many stories that are real stories. So you embed that into their DNA. Mm-hmm. And for the rest of their lives, they know they can achieve. They know they can win because it's embedded in them, right? In the civilian world, you don't get that. And so if you're an entrepreneur and you have people in your company, and I did this in lawyer marketing services, I probably at that time had 25, 30 employees, and every year around December, the 1 week between Christmas and New Year's, I would always take that and reflecting what we did the year before and setting a vision for what we were getting ready to do. Mm-hmm. But I've always said that if you have an idea and it's not written down, it's just an idea, right? But when you write it down, it becomes a goal. Mm. And so I wanted to teach my employees everything that I was learning, right? And so I'd let them go home for 3 days, and I'd say, I want you to put together a vision board, and I want you to read this material, and I want you to do this. Those suckers didn't care about that. They were taking 3-day vacation and enjoying it, right? And they'd put together a board, and they'd sell me on some story when they got there. Now, the cool thing was, 15 years later, one of them called me and he said, you know all that stuff you were teaching me back then 15, 20 years ago? I said, yeah. He said, I hated it then. He said, now I'm doing it, right? Awesome. And it's working for me. And he said, I just wanted to say thank you for it. So 1 out of 30 that actually got it, right? You can't force your employees to grab onto your vision. All you can do is continue to speak your vision and hope that they catch on to some piece of it, right? The best thing you can do for your employees is to live the kind of life of success that makes them want to desire and be like you, right? Because you can't embed anything in them. You can't. You can teach it, but it's up to them whether or not they grasp it. And it's fully up to their want to and their desire.
And a lot of people, what I've found is people who work for other organizations, this may not be all people, but there's a lot of people out there that have dreams and desires and goals that may be entrepreneurial, but nobody's ever given them a step forward. They've never had that somebody come in their life and say, hey, do a vision board. What if money wasn't an object, if this wasn't an object, if your family history and the poverty mentality wasn't an object, what would you do? What would you accomplish?
Yeah.
And you see that manifested in their daily life. And then those people, I kind of tease people who work for other people, and I have people that work for me, and that's okay. But it's kind of the bribe you take.
That's right.
To give up on your dreams.
You know what I find funny too, and this is one of the biggest arguments, right? And the Bible talks about this. Somebody agrees to go to work for you for a certain dollar amount, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they become jaded because they see somebody else is getting something more, right? You agreed to it, right? Exactly right? You agreed to it. And as a business owner, is my job to overpay you, right? Or is my job to try and get you at that right dollar amount that's smooth and smart for the company so that I can go do other things that keeps you employed? And I think about that. I think, with 48 employees at one time, how many cars did we buy, right? How many houses did we buy? Right. How many babies did we birth? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every one of those came because of what they were getting out of the company that we were working for, right?
Yeah.
And so, they had a salary, but that salary provided their home, their car, their everything. And some were very thankful. Others could care less and would come at you. I had one guy, this cracked me up. He worked for me for 90 days, 90-day evaluation. And he was doing some great things. He was a young kid, and he comes in and he says, hey, he said, I really don't want to work 5 days a week. I'd really like some extra time off. And I said, well, we can do that. I said, we can probably do 4 10s. He said, oh, no. I don't want to work 4 10s. I just want to work 4 days, 4 regular days, and then have 3 days off. And I said, all right. And he said, I'm not making near enough money. So he was at $35,000, I think, is where he was at the start. I mean, first job out of college, right? Yeah. At that time, 15 years ago. And so he said, I need a raise to $50,000 for those 4 days. And he said, and I said, I don't think we're going to be able to do that. And he said, well, then, he said, you can't do this without me.
Okay.
And I said, I tell you what, today's your last day, right? And I sure appreciate everything you did, but you can go ahead and grab your stuff and leave. Yeah. He comes back a month and a half later to see. He didn't believe that we could do it without him. I thought, are you kidding? I've been in this business for 10 years, right? And he just thought, so some of the attitude you get sometimes, right? Yeah. But it's a life lesson he'll learn from that experience. He'll never do that again, right? Because all of a sudden he was unemployed and trying to find something as good as that was, and he couldn't. He comes back a month and a half later asking for his job back. And I said, I'm sorry, I just can't do it.
Well, it's protecting your culture, not just letting him get by with something, but that culture will spread. You got to get that out of there quick.
Yeah, if you get a cancer in your company, you got to cut it out quick.
Yeah, and that's what I found too, is a lot of those things that, I've had some really money makers in my business that really kind of made the wheels turn, and then their attitude was just horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you got to choose that. You got to think long term than you do short term.
That's right.
That's a hard thing to cut off.
That's right.
That's really hard because it hurts, the bottom line.
Yeah.
In some cases. So what, I know you obviously you serve in the Marine Corps. You're serving right now in the House of Representatives for us in Oklahoma in District 12, my district. Thank you for that. I'm proud to have you.
Thank you.
But what do you feel like that business and politics, let's compare those two,
sure,
and how those kind of play hand in hand, and what the differences are there, and what business experience that you brought to the table. When, in my opinion, government just needs to be run like business, for crying out loud. If they would do that,
exactly,
and that's the whole idea. But what have you found that have been the brick walls you've had to try to break down?
Absolutely, I'll tell you, I'd never been to a Republican meeting. I'd never been in politics. I was a business owner with 48 employees getting ready to break into 50, and the government was telling me I was going to have to pay $2,000 per employee to not have insurance.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Right? And then I find out the senator in my district was the one that was running the bill in Oklahoma to make that happen.
Oh, no.
And so I was just ticked off. That's the only reason I ran for politics. And I thought, you know what, if that sorry sucker is going to do that, I'm going to put $50,000 into that race, and I'm going to run against him. And I got to where I was 21 points ahead of him. And then the last 10 days, they spent $350,000 against me to defeat me by 300 votes, right? And they put out every lying mailer that you can. So that's the first experience in politics is if you get anything in the mail, don't believe it. I don't care, good or bad or ugly. If you see anything on TV, don't believe it, good, bad, or ugly. Go talk to the person and see who they are first.
Yeah.
And so that's how I got into politics. Well, once I got in and was elected just a few years later, my mentality was the same. And politics influences everything. It influences churches. It influences businesses. It influences, and I feel like I am in politics right now at the perfect right time because they need the mentality that military brings, right? The one thing the military brings is anyone who signs on that dotted line was willing to give their entire life for something greater than themselves. And we're used to politicians who are willing to sacrifice everyone else to get for themselves, right?
Yep.
So we have to have people that are willing to sacrifice. And in our country, with what we've gone through just in the last few years, I feel like my job there is to protect our state, to put walls up around our state, to keep the federal government from overreach, to do those things. So politics plays a big part. And if you're a business owner and you're not paying attention to politics and you're not playing a part in some way, it is affecting you on a daily basis with the taxes they raise. It's affecting you with the regulations that they're passing. And you better be involved. You better start going to those and churches. churches have got to. Everybody says, well, there's a separation of church and state, right?
Right.
The separation is keep the state out of the church, not the church out of the state.
Right.
Everybody says, well, you're a Christian, right? And you're in politics. That can't be. You need to separate those two.
Yeah.
How are you going to separate that? That's my DNA. That's who I am, right?
So I think that's what God designed it.
Exactly.
He wanted government to be, guided.
Well, he didn't even want government in the beginning. He
Well,
wanted
that's
us to obey him, right? And we're the idiots that said, "Hey, give us a, what did they call him at that time? King? Give us a king." So I don't know.
Yeah, I think the big thing and the big lesson I think for a lot of our listeners is you're going to fail. You're going to have people steal from you. You're going to have things happen. You're going to have all of these major, not just minor things, major things happen. What was the main thing that just kept you going? That gnawing inside as an entrepreneur for me, but what kept you going to say, you know what, that's in my, I'm going to start, I'm going to do this, I'm going to keep going. After all those hit after hit, even get defeated, in the polls and think, you know what, I'm going to run again. I mean, a normal person would just be like, they don't want me. This is not right for me anyway. Maybe it wasn't in the stars.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
So tell me what your mentality was in those failures.
Yeah, I picture myself at the end of life, right? And at the end of life, you have a conversation with two people. You have a conversation with Mr. Loser, and you have a conversation with Mr. Winner. And you ask the thing, did you guys get hit? And did you get knocked down? Yes, I did. Did you have failures? Yes, I did. Did you have all these things that happen? And both of them say yes to both. The difference is the winner got up and kept trying. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, he just kept trying. When you get knocked down, when everything's against you, when your ex-wife's coming after you, when the business owner's coming after you, when lawsuits are happening, when people are lying, and all that stuff's going to happen, you just keep going. And you me personally, thank God I had him in my life, because I have a peace when I was going through all that. And I wasn't always there, right?
Yeah.
Believe me, I love whiskey and I love reading the Bible. I mean, that's just me, right? And I've given up the whiskey, believe it or not. Can you believe it? Doggone it. Can't believe it. But I'm telling you, it's just a matter of perseverance. And the person who perseveres is going to win. It says run the good race, right? Keep running. Don't give up. You're going to get knocked down. The thing is, everybody hears the same lies. I have the same lies in my head. You don't have enough money. You're not good enough. You don't have the connections. All those lies were the same, and everybody hears them. And one thing I learned is you renew your thoughts, right?
Yep.
When you have that negative thoughts, you speak the opposite.
There you go.
So when you're a loser, that's what your mind says. Oh, I'm a winner, and I'm going to win. I'm going to succeed. You don't have enough money. I have all things at the hands. I can afford and do anything. I'm going to go after it. So don't let any of those things limit you. So many people don't get started because they let their mind, which the Marine Corps teaches you about mind control, right? Your body's made to run 100 miles. Your body could go do it. Your mind tells it can't happen, right? So it's all about the mind, renewing that mind. And when those negative thoughts come, speak out loud the positive opposite of whatever that negative thought is.
So your own ears can hear it.
Your own ears can hear. Your heart is what drives you.
Yeah.
And if your heart's thinking those negative thoughts, you're never going to win a thing.
That's gold.
So you speak outside, you hear it, you start to believe it, and then you achieve it.
That's awesome. I have a saying in my business, a lot of these guys know it, all my guys know it. I say, you got to fight like the third monkey board in the ark, and it's starting to rain.
And where's that third monkey now, baby?
That's right. That's right. He's at the top.
That's
so
right.
That's the point is you just can't stop fighting. And,
that's right.
and every battle's different.
Yeah.
But eventually the battle gets a little easier because you're like, I came across that before.
That's right. Me. You know, I wasn't ever the best sales guy.
Yeah.
I wasn't. There were so many people better than I was, but I just never quit. When I hung up the phone, I picked it up and dialed again, right? And eventually found my voice to where my voice made sense to me.
Yeah.
And every training book in the world you can try until you find that one that fits you and your personality. Yeah. And for me, it was always authenticity. I mean, I just was authentic on the phone. And for whatever reason, that sold.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, people can pick up on that.
Exactly. And they bought me.
Yeah.
They weren't buying my product.
Right.
Right?
That's the first thing.
Yeah.
They got to buy you first before you see the value.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Man, this has been awesome. I don't want to keep you here. I know you got a busy schedule. You got to get back to Oklahoma City.
You can keep me here as long as you want, brother.
Anything you want to say? Any closing thoughts that you have? Any nuggets of information for those that are trying to business? I mean, you sit on the business committee for the state and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What are you seeing? What are you seeing? I mean, obviously, whatever's happens in Oklahoma is not like California or Florida, but
yeah,
we tend to run a little bit cleaner race, a little bit life race, if you will, here in the Bible Belt. But what are you seeing coming down the pipe? Business owners need to be, like you said, they need to be involved.
Yeah,
they need to pay attention.
Well, I've worked my way into the chairman of Business and Commerce now, and so anything to do with business comes through my committee. And if I don't want to hear it, I don't hear it. Yeah. Right. So I feel it's my job to protect businesses from overreach of the state and the federal government. And if we have to, I will run legislation. In fact, I'll tell you this. The way the federal government has control over us is all through finances. Yeah. They have 18 enumerated powers that they have authority to be able to conduct. Yet they're conducting about 2,000 more than that, right? Mm-hmm. We pay 35% of our taxes to the federal government and only 4.75% to our state, right? The state's supposed to be where you're doing everything. So in learning all this, I'm trying to figure out how do you reverse that power and bring it back to state, because that's where it was intended. The federal government didn't even exist. Yeah. Did not exist until the states put together the Constitution of the United States to create a federal government for security reasons, right, for the military. And then all of a sudden it started growing in power, and everybody thinks that's where the power's at. Well, the 10th Amendment says the state gets to do what the state wants to do. So guess what? We can fight against the federal government. And so I've got a bill that will actually have everyone in the state of Oklahoma, instead of paying their federal taxes directly to the federal government, we can pay them to Oklahoma Tax Commission. Mm. And then every quarter the Tax Commission can write a check to the federal government. That gets rid of a few thousand employees at the federal government that we don't need, adds a few to the state level, right?
Wait, also, we don't need 87,000 new IRS agents?
You know why they need? You know what they say? They say that we're going to go after the billionaires. There's 749 billionaires in the United States. You need 87,000. Guess who those 87,000 are going after? They're going after the farmers. They're going after the small business owners. They're going after every one of you. Yep. And so you've got to watch and guard against that. I'm telling you, if you don't start paying attention to what's going on in the government is going to take control of this entire nation. Mm-hmm. And so we have to be able to fight against it. So in that regard, what I say is simply pay attention, get behind people who are running good legislation, pull money out of your pocket and help out, because it takes that to get these folks elected, right? We have some real good candidates that never make it because they don't get financial support. And yet the federal government is giving money to Blue, whatever it is, that gives money to whatever, who gives money to candidates. And so they are fully taking your tax dollars, my tax dollars, and are routing them back through. And so as good conservative-minded folks who want to be business owners and control your own life and your own destiny, we've got to get involved and do that. So
yeah, because it all trickles down. Because if you're an American worker, it's going to trickle down to you eventually, because the guy that you're working for or the girl that you're working for is going to suffer.
Absolutely.
It's going to suffer.
And all I say is don't believe what you get in the mail, seriously. Yeah. It's all, I mean, I put out positive business stuff. Yeah. I'll have my opponent put out negative stuff against me. Mm-hmm. And until you talk to a person one-on-one, you can't get a feel for their spirit, their heart, their drive. And you've got to get to know them. I mean, I've met with most of our presidents. I've met with most of our senators, all of our senators in Oklahoma, but a lot of the mainstay ones, and I want to know who they are, what their drive is, and that's the only way to get it done. So
what is your plan going forward? I know election season is upon us.
Yep.
You're in an election cycle that's coming up.
Yep.
You're going to win. It doesn't matter. But my point is how long are you going to tolerate politics?
Yeah,
is a toleration, brother.
I was sick my first year, to be honest. I don't know if you remember me standing up against a teacher strike or not. But,
yes, I remember that one.
So there was a video that made CNN news there. But my first time.
Way to get your name out there, baby.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing about that, I remember CNN came in my office and they were setting up, and I said, CNN. I know you guys. I pass your channel when I go to Fox News, and that was 6 years ago. Now, I wouldn't say that today, right? They were in my office last week, and I was fighting for that guy on death row. But so all news media, and here's one thing I found in politics is there is no bad news media in politics, because literally I can go anywhere and everyone recognizes the name, right? and they don't know why, but they recognize it. And so that's good. Where am I going after this? Man, it's a day-to-day with me. I literally have wanted to quit 10 times in politics. If I feel like I'm not able to do good, then I'm just going to get out of it. When I first got in, I realized being a state representative, you are of zero value other than you help your constituents. So if a constituent has a car dealership that's giving them problems, has a bank that's giving them problems, has an AT&T bill that's giving them problems, whatever the deal is, the state representative can call on your behalf and get quicker answers, right? Yeah. So I love being able to do that for the constituents. But if I have the best bill in the world and I take it to the House of Representatives and the Speaker of the House doesn't like me, or if he doesn't like my bill, or if he doesn't like the way I'm conducting myself, that bill will never get heard, right?
No matter how good it is.
No matter how good. And so there is a political game that you have to learn that was put together by the Constitution of the United States on purpose, right? Because they understood and they knew how to do it. So you just have to understand it's the way it is, and you have to work within that realm. And so for me, after this, I literally, I don't have aspirations after tomorrow because I don't know if I'm going to be around to even want to do it next year. Yeah. There's been so many times I just want to say, go relax and enjoy your business and be with your girl, you know? Yeah. So I don't know. I've had people want me to run for governor. I've had people want me to run for House and Senate at the federal level. I will never do that. I'm not going to the federal level. It's so screwed up. Yeah. The power should be here anyway. Yeah. But I'll stay in Oklahoma and fight for Oklahoma, whether I'm on the business side or political side, either way.
Man, I appreciate it. We appreciate it out in our district. I know. Wish more districts were like you.
Thank you.
But I think there's a lot to be learned from a businessman running into politics. I mean, we learned it with Trump. There's a lot of things there that, I'd take a pretty mean tweet right about now. I think every business owner out there would love to see one of those instead of what we've got in office now. But, at the federal level, like you said, it's out of control. There's nothing we can do about it at the moment other than vote the best way. And Oklahoma pretty much stays red, which is good.
Oh, yeah. I've told the federal government, you want to come to Oklahoma and try it? Come on, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be a hard
It's going to be a hard fight. Yeah.
It's hard. So that's for sure.
You know what? Oklahoma, though, right now, we brought in 150 businesses from California. And I love what the governor always tells them. He says, you know what? It took me 18 years living here in Oklahoma before I could vote. So we're going to make you wait 18 years too.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't that be awesome? Because we want the businesses to come here that want to thrive and survive, right? Oklahoma was open for business. We were open for business. There were a few pockets, Tulsa and Oklahoma City, that shut things down. Broken Arrow had a 17% increase in taxes during 2020, right? Oklahoma had an increase during that time because we stayed open. I called all my law enforcement officers and said, you can't shut down a business owner that doesn't want to be shut down, and they didn't shut down one. We had tanning beds in Wagner County open during COVID, right? And so Oklahoma was open for business, and so that said something to the people across America. And you've got people leaving New York and California in droves. In droves.
I've heard it, and you know where I hear it is, in my insurance company and all the things we do for retirement things, we do a lot of real estate people. We help a lot of those people, and they're self-employed. And a lot of those self-employed people come to us for answers, and they're just seeing it left over right, people moving from California. That's where I hear it the most.
And I'm telling you, I just sold 2 condos in downtown Tulsa. Day one of the listing, full price cash offer. Second one, full price cash offer with an increase of cash, right? So, I mean, things are just moving like this. Oklahoma is the place to be right now for business. It really is. Yeah. It's a great place, and there is freedom here. We're going to continue to fight for freedom here. But we'll also work with places like Kansas and Texas. I mean, those little places.
Those little guys that can keep up with us. They can.
Whatever it takes.
Man, this is great. I have enjoyed this. Man, come back and talk to us, will you?
I'd love to, man.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate all you do.
Absolutely. Thank you for all you do. You make me want to run for office. Not really, no.
Oh, but hey, I need you, brother. Come on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Bet.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate you.